Hey guys, I'm Charlie Pioli. I'm an analyst with MSW Consultants. We're a small, quirky garbage consulting firm in East Orlando near UCF. And this is Jessica, who I'll let introduce herself.
Cool. Hi guys, my name is Jessica Wright, and I work with ecoPreserve, we're a local sustainability consulting company. And I would say Charlie is the king and I am the queen of waste. So really quick, I wanted to address her question about the hose, the water hose. So I want to give you the top 5 MRF issues. So these are the materials that are top 5. Number 1 is tanglers. What would be a tangler? That would be your water hose. That would be your Christmas lights. Those things that you put into the bin because you hope they're recyclable, but they're not really. Second thing, plastic wrap and plastic bags. Third thing, bagged items, anything inside of a bag, because a lot of people have a little compartment underneath the sink that they put all their recyclables in at the end of the week. They tie it up in a nice, cute little bag, and they put it in the recycling. Not a good thing. That bag gets pulled out, and it is sent straight to the landfill. Number 5, hazardous waste. That would be things like sharps. That would be things like razors, because people think, oh, it's got plastic on it. Let me throw it in there. Not recyclable. And the last one is always my favorite. This is the yuck category. People that leave food and other items inside of their recycling. Diapers, unfortunately, number 7 on the list. That's kind of yucky. So there you go. I'm Jessica. Nice to meet you.
And by the way, MRF, she referred to, is a recycling facility, Jessica, with the industry acronym.
So sorry.
So I want to have a quick show of hands. Who's part of an organization, a business, an institution like a university, a hospital? So raise your hand. So yeah, I made this presentation targeting you guys because I know I'm not in a room full of corporate CEOs, but you guys are part of these organizations and can facilitate the discussion how your organization can reduce their waste. So these are a little bit about Jessica.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version. Basically, I worked in hospitality for about 18 years, saw the excessive amounts of waste, whether it be materials, whether it be food, things of that sort. And I was just horrified by it, so I went back to school and decided that I wanted to make an impact. So I'm now working for a sustainability company, working with those industries, trying to look at what are the solutions.
And I as well worked for a catering company in Boston where I went to university, and nothing can open your eyes to the amount of egregious waste out there, like catering. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'm local here. I just got back from a waste audit I did in Boise, Idaho today. And I have a blog. You should check out that blog for just more industry knowledge. So we want to get into a little icebreaker. I'll give you the questions, and you'll be, encouraged to interact with people at your table and write them down in order. And then at the end of these 3 questions, we'll do a little show of hands. So this is the question. The average American generates about 4.5 pounds of waste per person per day. How much waste does the average sub-Saharan African generate? Has everyone got what they think is the answer? Yeah? All right, next question. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is the largest of 5 ocean gyres containing large amounts of plastic waste. At what year will plastic outnumber the amount of fish by weight in the world's oceans if we continue on our trajectory? A, B, C, and D. Okay, on to the next one. Last icebreaker question is the U.S. population is about 5% of the world's population. What percentage of the world's waste or resources do we generate? A, B, C, and D. Okay. Take about a minute. Okay, I think everyone's got it. Let's continue. Okay. Now on to the answers. D. The average sub-Saharan African is about 1.5 pounds versus the average American. Not trying to, make anyone ashamed of themselves. It's the facts. D. Yep. And this is fish. This, I guess, doesn't include, all the plankton and organisms in the ocean. And then lastly, 30%. Yeah. Woohoo! You got it right.
30% of the trash.
Okay, I just want to get in real quick. So this presentation, is targeting the audience of organizations, and a lot of organizations, cities like Philadelphia, New York, Seattle, even Orlando has a zero waste plan by 2040. But what does zero waste actually mean? Well, by today's definition, zero waste means about 90% of the waste stream diverted. Regardless, 10% is not gonna be recycled or recovered. You got things like diapers and hoses that are just unrecoverable with today's infrastructure. Like I said, you got to prioritize infrastructural improvements. And I'll let Jessica speak to the next.
Okay, so when we talk about prioritize the infrastructure, what we mean by that is right now, your solutions in your businesses and your homes are, I can put it in the trash, or I can recycle it, or I can take a plastic bag to Publix, or I can take this to that organization. So as a county, state, city, we need to look at the infrastructure that's built into our waste management or resources, and we need to build those infrastructures. So an organics program that is available to large organizations that does not currently exist, that is feasible for them. So what are we doing about it? There are a lot of great groups that are getting together and they're talking about this problem. So Orange County specifically is right now working on getting a single stream MRF, material recovery facility. I apologize for using that earlier, I'm so sorry. Anyway, so they're working on what does that MRF look like? How do we make it create the best product so that at the end of recycling, the county is able to sell those materials and create a program that actually works for the county, and they can create a revenue stream to maintain that MRF and keep it up to date. And then they've also got a group called Beyond 34, which is an amazing group of organizations and vendors and all these different people that are coming together and talking about the issues. What is wrong with the infrastructure? What do we need to build? How can we move things forward in order to get not only to zero waste, but Florida as a state has a 75% goal by 2020. So how do we get there? FYI, right now we're at about 45. So that's a lot to do in a year. So they're talking about the solutions, they're building the infrastructure, they're getting the right partners to sit at the table to talk about the issues and talk about the solutions.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, Orlando is doing a pretty good job at diverting the material around the city. I mean, you go to the city, you get a free backyard composter. Currently, they just made an ordinance for businesses and multifamily apartment buildings who weren't currently permitted to recycle. It's becoming mandatory. So I think this presentation is really timely. All right, this is a step-by-step process how an organization can actually divert their materials and save some money while they're doing it. Step one is using this cool new technology which is a container monitor you install in your dumpster, and it kind of gives you a fullness reading of what the dumpster is currently at. Thank you, Jessica. You from a remote remote location, you can kind of check on the fullness of your dumpster and get a look at, are you getting close to full, or do you need to call the hauling company, the one to collect the trash, to come pick it up? This would be an alternative to the current method, which you have a standard 2 times a week collection frequency. So by reducing that frequency or the size of your dumpster, depending on how much you're generating, you're able to actually save yourself some money and renegotiate.
All right, so performing a waste audit. So why do we need to do a waste audit? If you don't know what's in your waste, how do you know what is recyclable, what is divertible, what is reusable, what can I put back into my community as a usable commodity? So whether it be food, whether it be textiles, electronics, things of that sort. The only way to do this is dumpster diving. Not people's favorite thing, but there are people like us that are super freaks and love to do it. But what we want to do is we want to get a snapshot. What is in my trash? So do I have a lot of food waste? Okay, I've got 30% food waste. Now I need to address why I have so much food waste. Is it an operational issue? Is it because we're not using materials at the proper time? Is it because we're not doing rotation? Is it because somebody's buying too much? What is the reason? So then we want to look at it. We actually want to have a list. What all is in my trash? I've got this much recyclable plastic. I have this much plastic that is not recyclable. I have this much stuff that, wait a minute, why are we throwing this out? It seems like a lot of waste. So I'll give you a perfect example. I did a healthcare audit, and in the audit, we noticed that all of their sharps containers, the sharps containers were filled, they were sent to the vendor, they were incinerated inside the container. And I said, well, why are you incinerating the container? There's nothing wrong with the container. Why don't you empty it, incinerate what's inside of it because it's considered a hazardous waste, reuse the container. So the healthcare system said, that's a great idea. So they went back to the vendor. They actually had a conversation. It took about a year to make the change because it was an operational change on their end, but it actually ended up saving them about $360,000 by each hospital because it was a reusable container that came back to them every time instead of getting incinerated, which if you're burning something as a vendor, you're going to charge the client for that container. The only way to know that is to dumpster dive. So we want to get what's inside of our trash, and we want to know percentages. How much is recyclable? How much is reusable? How much of it can I put back into the community, whether it be food that we could possibly donate, whether it be textiles, electronics, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to develop a baseline and get the material composition in a tabular format. And when someone who's seen enough waste streams takes a look at it, they can have an aha moment and tell you what you should be targeting. So we're actually performing a waste audit here at the end of the month, March 31st, East End Market. They allowed us to, raccoon around in their dumpster. So just want to give you guys a little look at what the logistics involved entail. You're going to need your sort table for about 4 or 5 individuals to stand around and sort the material into the containers. And once the material is in the containers, you weigh it on a scale, and then you are going to record that data in like your tablet or on paper. It's a weight-based metric, so this is an example of one of the results tables from the waste audit. there's great metrics you can divulge from these audits, like what is your recycling rate? What is your overall diversion rate, which includes recycling plus organics? What is your contamination level inside the recycling? And then if you're more interested in individual products or items like straws or all the rage these days, you can actually count the number of straws as your baseline, perform another audit, and kind of get a look at what the reduction has been. So I'll let Jessica take it from here.
So really quickly, I'm going to run you through these numbers. Whoop, go back. Okay. Okay, so really quickly, reported recycling rate, this is what the organization said, hey, we're awesome, we've got a 41% recycling rate. So we do a deep dive and we actually say, okay, let's actually sort it out. So we had a 10% contamination rate when we did the audit. So the actual recycling rate was 31%. So when we come back to this 10%, what do we think that tells us? Because contamination is anything that's in the recycling that should not be in there. So that 10% tells us what? What do we need to do? Education. Thank you. Potential diversion rate, 71%. What does that mean? That means when we actually did a deep dive into the recycling and the waste, because most organizations have waste bins and then they have recycle bins. So we audit them separately, okay? When the waste bin, when you're going through it, you're looking for recyclable or reusable or donatable products. So when we do that, we call that a potential diversion. So that's where this comes into play. So they're super excited. They're like, woo, 41%, we rock. And then we come in and we say, you actually have the potential of 71%. So now they've gone from being complacent, yay, we're awesome, to we could do better. So that's why these audits are so incredibly important.
Yeah, and this was from a law school in Pennsylvania, and you can see they decreased, the recycling rate lowered, so not a good job on their part. The capture rate is another important metric to measure those recyclable materials that you already have programs implemented for. As you can see down here, their capture rate of recyclables, their potential recyclables is a lowly 3%. But it looks like they're diverting their mixed paper pretty good, about 30% of their cardboard. Cardboard is always something you want to recycle. It just fills up dumpster capacity if you're throwing it in the trash, and it's pretty easy to set up a cardboard baler. You can even generate revenue from cardboard if you sell it on the commodity market. And this is kind of to what Jessica already said. This shows the potential outlets for those waste items. You can donate, take your metal to a scrap yard. Regulated waste shouldn't be thrown in the garbage. Stuff like full aerosol cans, car fluids, batteries, paint, those should actually be taken to Orange counties once in a while. They have a collection day where they'll take those off your hands and properly dispose of them. And then, of course, there's a percentage that nothing can be done with. It's just got to go to the landfill.
Okay, so this is, I'm sure many of you remember the upside down pyramid and talking about, reduce, reuse, recycle. So this is the pyramid that we really, really, really want people to focus on. And the first step is not recycle. The first step is reduce. So when we talk about reduction, I look around the room and you get that. You get the reduction. So by show of hands, somebody tell me 3 things that we're doing in this room right now that fall under the reduction category. No napkins. Reusable plates. One more. Yes, ma'am. No water bottles. Woo, we're awesome. So when you are working in an organization, a lot of times leadership cannot see how do we reduce. So that is where your green team or your waste diversion team or you as an individual need to go to leadership and say, we could reduce by whatever it might be. That is the step that we want everyone to focus heavily on. And then the next one is reuse. So in some organizations, some things are not reusable, but other things are. So let's take an example of a hotel. In a hotel, it's highly, highly wasteful. They use textiles, they use, linens for the beds, they use towels for the bathrooms, and at a certain point they say, it's too stained, it's ripped, it's torn, it's got lipstick on it, we can't get it out, throw it out. No! So who can tell me one thing they could do with those textiles? Donate it. Where would we donate it? Goodwill? Salvation Army? What about your animal shelters?
No towels.
Always need them. No towels. For the animal shelter? Okay.
Also, there's drop boxes all over the city of Orlando for recycling your textiles. The nearest one is Best Buy on Colonial. They're all over.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different ways for organizations to figure out what they can reuse. And again, how do we figure out what to reduce, what to reuse? We got to do the audit. Dumpster dive. That's why we're here. So the third step is recycle and compost. But notice that these two are significantly larger than our recycle. So I know we're talking about recycling today, but these two are the biggest steps that we need organizations to focus on. And right now, this is where their focus is. It's easy. Okay? The fourth one is recover. So that's how can we get energy out of the materials that we're throwing in the landfill? Whether it be a energy from waste facility, whether it be anaerobic digestion, gasification, plasmification, any of those things, recover as much energy as we can. At the end of all four steps, we're going to get rid of what's left.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that food waste from a catering operation, for example, is tailor-made to be donated or reused. And when I was working at my catering company, I was putting pressure on them to do something about it, but they ended up not listening to me, and they gave me the poor excuse that they were worried about liability issues. But last week I was at a conference in Boston, and they were talking, two Harvard lawyers got up there and they were talking about the Good Samaritan Act signed by Bill Clinton, basically removing all liability from donators of food waste. So I don't want to hear that excuse. As an organization, it's important to set some goals, short-term and long-term, and a timeline for those goals to track your progress against. It may be important to talk with those people in your supply chain. Organizations, businesses have such huge purchasing power. I'll give you an example. At the same conference, I heard the sustainability coordinator of Atlanta Airport, the largest airport in the world. She talked about she implemented a program to remove all the little cardboard cylinders inside toilet paper rolls. And that may seem small, but at Atlanta Airport, that adds up to like tons per year. So with that small little adjustment, she reduced a lot of waste.
Okay, so now we want to talk about going after low-hanging fruit. So low-hanging fruit, a lot of times, for some organizations, it's going to be as simple as putting a recycle bin in. For other organizations, it's going to be, okay, we've got recycle bins in, now let's take a step back, let's look at our reduction and our reuse options. So the biggest thing that we find is people get all excited about recycling. Oh, we're going to recycle, we're so awesome. And they put bins out that are not right next to trash cans. I'm sorry to break it to you, Americans are lazy. Lazy, 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 lazy. So, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that every trash can sits right next to a recycle bin, because I don't care if it's 5 feet away, they will not walk that 5 feet to put it in recycling. The other thing is you reduce contamination dramatically by always having your bins paired together, because people will step up to it and they'll go, oh, wait, trash, recycle. Oh, this is recycle. If we put one in one place and one in the other place, I'm going to put whatever I have in the closest container. Second thing is signage programs. I cannot stand going into a facility and we've got the wilted sign that says recycling on it, and that's it. What do I recycle? What can I put in there? Tell me what to put in there, because as a normal citizen, I don't know what I'm allowed to put in here. So it's really important that we make sure our signage tells people, whether it be through color coding, small pictures, limited text. Don't give them a book to read, because again, what are Americans? Lazy. They're not going to read it. Give them a picture, give them one word. Bingo, we're good. Okay, so staging areas. What is staging areas? That's basically where are we going to put material. So a lot of times people get really excited about recycling, but they forget you have to have a bin out in the back to collect the material, in addition to having a bin at the front of the area. Second thing is collection efficiency. So who's going to be collecting that material for you, whether it be your custodial team? Are you doing training with the custodial team? Talk with your custodial team, meet with them on a quarterly basis. What are you seeing? Because believe it or not, they are the eyes and ears of your program. Small but intentional adjustments. So what does that mean? So if I put a recycle bin and a trash bin in an area and I find that the recycle bin is getting used but the trash bin is not, we may be able to pull both units and put them in a different area. If we find that the signage is not working because we have high amounts of contamination, we need to readdress our signage. Again, meet with your teams, talk with them, and find out what's going on with it.
Yeah, and write this down. There's a great website that provides downloadable free signage with the color coding, the pictures, minimal text. They're called recycleacrossamerica.org. And shadow audit is what Jessica was speaking to. That's where you kind of shadow the custodial staff, see where they're placing things, kind of give them a step of encouragement to do it the right way. Second to lastly, it's important for the leadership to be involved and not just be, shrugging things off. Create a sustainability coordinator and a green team. I remember when I was living in Boston, I was part of the Red Sox green team. I'd go around the stadium collecting recyclables, watching baseball games in between innings. But it was like the most awesome experience.
Okay, so really quick, I love this graphic. I use it in pretty much every presentation I do, because the difference between success and empowerment is a leader who sits and dictates and a leader who leads the way. So leading by example is a huge piece of having a successful program. And so when we talk about the leadership support, that means that that person is really engaged in the program, they support it, and they're providing not only the money behind it, but they're also providing the passion behind it. Incentive programs for suppliers and employees. So what does that look like? As a purveyor or a vendor, if I'm working with an organization and they tell me, if you can reduce my waste by changing your packaging or changing the bulk versus single, things of that sort, if you can help me, I don't mind paying 1.5% or something like that. It's also working with your hauler. If you work with your hauler and you say, if you can help us reduce our waste, then we'll pay a premium of X% of our contract. They're incentivized. They want to help you. Guess what? They're the industry experts. They know what technology is out there. They know how to give you the reporting. They want you to be successful, so now they're going to talk to you more, they're going to work with you, and they're going to try to make your program more successful. Walmart is a great example. I know in some books they're, not the fantabulous people that they are, but they have a good business model for this. So they have actually incentivized for their vendors to reduce their packaging and to use more reusable products versus disposable products. And they pay a premium for that because they want to provide that to their clients.
In the final step, we've already mentioned all the ways you can reduce your waste. Once you get to that point, it's time to renegotiate rates with your hauling company, the people who actually come collect your trash. This little graphic here I took off the city site for Orlando. They explain how by generating the same amount of waste, same number of cubic yards, just by recycling, you're able to save about $123. I think that's annually, or no, monthly. Just imagine $123 times it by 12. That would be your savings for the year. It really adds up fast, and simple phone call, you have the audit data to back yourself, to back your new program, and they're bound to listen, or else you tell them that you're going to a different company.
Okay, so what can your organization gain by following those 5 steps that we talked about with reduction, reuse, recycle, composting, and then recovering energy? So one of the big things is community leader. Being seen as a community leader is really important to a lot of organizations. So exploit that. Go to your company, exploit the fact that certain organizations are getting huge amount of press. Who here saw that Disney flipped the switch on their solar panels this week? Did anybody see the article about that? Okay, so about half the room saw that. So that was huge. It is one of the largest solar farms in the US right now. And it's huge. It's going to power up 2 of their parks. So when you talk about that kind of stuff, people get excited about it, and they remember that Disney is doing it. So use that to your advantage when you go back and you're talking with your companies, that they want to be the community leader. They want to be the organization that makes the most of the materials that they're either producing or using. Meeting certification standards. Is everybody familiar with leadership? Okay, I kind of thought you were. TRUE is a zero waste certification program, and it is a very challenging program for regular organizations, but for manufacturers, this is a fantastic program because it helps walk them through every process of manufacturing to actually find where the waste is, how they can reduce, how they can reuse materials, and how they can recycle or put things back into the community. And then adhering to regulatory requirements. So as you heard, the city is getting more and more restrictive about what is to be done. These regulations are coming. If organizations get in front of it, they will spend less money because we're not running to catch up with the regulation, we're actually in front of the regulation. And the last one is revenue or tax exemptions. Donations are a tax exemption. Food donations are a tax exemption. Textiles and electronics and other things like that. Putting those commodities back into your community are a tax deduction for you. And last one is cost savings at the collection bins. So we just saw the financial analysis of doing no recycling, 25%, and then 50%. Is that it?
I just want to mention the importance to think creatively. Once you have that audit data and you know what you're generating, think creatively about the materials. If you're a tire manufacturer, can you talk with a local gym who could grind that up and make a gym floor out of it? Of course, there's the food waste. Could you talk, even if you're not able to donate it, are you able to find a community garden you could, give it off to and then reduce your container size and save yourself money? There's a lot of different ways if you're able to just think of it from a new perspective. And of course, organics is about 40% of the waste stream, so that is definitely a good thing to focus on. This is my contact information, my blog, whentrashbecomestreasure.com, and my Twitter, and as well as Jessica and her colleague Oscar. They're manning the table in the back. We're both, local environmental consultants here in Orlando. We thought it would be best to get together and, spread our knowledge to everyone. And I hope you guys can take this to your organization.
Can we give them a round of applause, please?